Kevin Wall from Noon's Magician, the SB Nation website with the longest name ever. The official name of this website, if you guys do not know, is Troy Noons is an absolute magician before the former Syracuse Orange quarterback. Kevin Wall, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. How are you tonight?
Really good to see you here. I will give you as much as I know about Syracuse football this year, because if Syracuse is not winning, I am not watching. So I apologize there. Of course, last season's team, Fran Brown, gained a lot of respect across the nation for winning 10 games. I would liken that team to the Sam Hartman Wake Forest teams, where basically it was a very mediocre team otherwise, and it was all riding on 45 or 50 throws from the quarterback, Kyle McCord in this case, and like 3 really good receivers. And if they were hot, they won. And if they were having an off day, they generally didn't win. And obviously most of those guys are gone. And now Syracuse struggling. Of course, they had a quarterback situation with Ricky Collins and Steve Angeli to start the season. Angeli, I believe, won the job, got injured. Collins, a former Purdue commit, LSU commit, now with Syracuse. And I believe he's been injured as well, correct? Where do we stand on Syracuse football at this point?
So Steve Angeli won the job. Syracuse was 3-1, beat Clemson on the road, but Angeli tore his Achilles that game, and that was it. That was all downhill from there. And Collins had 4.5 games, unsuccessful outside of the Clemson. He did come in the second half and kind of held on that game, but lost 4 in a row and was benched last week. And Syracuse started a walk-on who is on a lacrosse scholarship at quarterback. So, yeah, that's the state of Syracuse football right now. I think that kind of sums it up.
Totally random.
Yeah.
I was a huge Syracuse lacrosse fan in the Powell brothers eras, because that would be right at the end of, my high school year going into Labor Day weekend or Memorial Day weekend. And I would see those. So I would see, what was it? KC and Mike was the last one.
Yeah.
There was another.
Ryan.
Yeah, there
Ryan
we
was
go. But yeah, I would always see it. It was just like I'd be at home and like doing nothing. Like, oh, Syracuse lacrosse randomly. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, we have maybe a walk-on lacrosse player at quarterback. I was
Collins again.
Or Collins again. I know that there was another actual football recruit freshman, a true freshman who had played. Is he in the conversation at all or no?
So Luke Carney is a quarterback from Texas, but he's got one more game left to play and to maintain his red shirt. And so the plan this week is apparently to maintain the red shirt. So people tend to think that he might play the final game, which is a home game against Boston College, which gives him a couple more weeks to prepare, maybe get a couple of offensive linemen back, and also gives him a home game against a team that's really weak rather than playing at Miami or at Notre Dame. But Fran Brown kind of keeps things guarded. So Filardi starting last week was a last-minute announcement, kind of day of the game. And it went awful. He completed 1 pass in the first half. Syracuse threw for under 40 yards for the game against North Carolina. And then obviously if you can't throw the ball, teams are just going to unload on the running game. And once Carolina got the lead, it was over. So, so no one really knows. I think Collins might get the shot back, but I don't think Carney's an option this week.
So then what is your preference personally between Collins or Filardi this week?
I think you go back to Collins. He didn't win, but he looked better against Georgia Tech. And better by a measure. Like Filardi just looked overmatched last week. The offensive line's got a couple injuries. Last week, Syracuse moved a guard to center because the top 2 centers were out. Then one of the guards, TJ Ferguson, a Florida State transfer, went out. So the starting center went back in at center, but he was limited. And obviously against Miami's defensive line, I don't know that you want to throw a walk-on freshman out there against that group with a banged up offensive line. I think Collins has more game experience. He can move a little bit better outside the pocket. He probably gives you the best chance of surviving in this game and, making some plays.
Okay. So last year, obviously with McCord, it was the game plan that didn't work early, but you saw the bones of it and you just kept going to it was, hey, look, we got these big grown men, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" at wide receiver, and then Trevor Pena running underneath. Cool. Yeah. But basically, because he was creating space like Restrepo. They were, mirror versions of each other. But all the other receivers was, hey, we're bigger physically, throw it up, contested catch, and they caught every single one. Is that something you're going to try to run back against this secondary, or is there like a different mentality of attack that you think that the passing game, maybe with Ricky Collins, will try to employ versus Miami?
They've tried to run the same offense, and Jelly was able to run that kind of timing based, putting the ball where receivers could make a play. Unfortunately, the receivers this year haven't made as many plays, and obviously losing a guy like Aronda Gadsden who made every catch last year, and then Jackson Meeks, the Georgia transfer, who really came on. Right now, the leading receiver is Jonte Cook, who's a Texas transfer, a little bit more in the Pena mode in terms of a speed guy. And then on the outside, Justice Ross Simmons is probably that one guy, the big body guy that can make the tough catches against tight coverage. But he's been kind of banged up and limited with injury. And so it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for everyone. That there's frustration on the team because Collins and the receivers haven't been on the same page. Same thing with last week with Filardi. The offense that Jeff Nixon tries to run is very, I guess, complex in that the quarterback and the receivers kind of have to read the defense and adjust their routes. So there are a lot of combination routes. And last year you had veteran guys and a veteran in McCord. And so they were kind of on the same page. Since Angeli went out, there's been some issues. The ball's not going in the same spot. The receiver and the quarterback aren't reading the same things. Like last week, Cook was on a wheel route on a third down, and he kept going down the sideline. But Filardi wanted him threw the ball to the sticks because he saw the safety coming over the top. And so it's just things like that have really kind of compounded. And then the protection issues. Like last week, North Carolina was blitzing the young quarterback. And then at halftime, they realized that they were getting pressure with 4. So they were simulating blitz. And they were taking away the short, quick pass, and then they were just swarming Filardi with a 4-man rush. And so they're dropping 7, and there's nothing open. And so I would imagine Miami watched that tape, and Miami's got a better defensive line than North Carolina. And so if Syracuse wants to keep going 4 and 5 wide, 4 or 5 guys going out in routes on 3rd and long, like they're going to do the same thing. They're just going to come to the line, make it look like they're going to blitz, back off and cut off those slant routes. Probably the biggest threat would be Dan Villari, the tight end for Syracuse, in the middle, but North Carolina had him bracketed and sometimes triple covered because he's really good at getting open. He's your big, strong adult guy that can make some tough catches and get yards after catch in the middle of the field. But Carolina just took that right away. And then on the outside, they played a lot of press, it looked like. And by the time anybody could run open, the defensive line had gotten home.
Yeah, and tight ends are favorite targets for quarterbacks because they're right in front of the field of vision. So there's a drop back, like it's one of the first things you can see. So I do want to ask another question about the offense.
Yeah.
So Miami, every single game this year, after the game, coaches and players have had the exact same statement. Well, they ran some stuff that they never showed on film. There were some wrinkles and some surprises and some trick plays and da-da-da-da-da. Every single game. So for Syracuse this week, what are some of those off the radar, off the playbook things that are going to be run that you don't normally run, but it's a special game? Miami's everybody's Super Bowl. You're already having a bad season. Might as well empty the playbook. Yeah. What are some of those things that we might see?
They didn't screen at all last week.
Okay.
And it's interesting with an inexperienced quarterback, a banged up offensive line, struggling to get passes off. They really didn't run any screen game. So I'd imagine you might see that, try to slow down the pass rush. Didn't do a lot of motion, didn't do a lot of they haven't run a jet sweep with Cook in a few weeks. We saw that beginning of the year. Both Cook and Darrell Gill Jr. are the starting receivers, have good speed on the outside and haven't gotten the ball in the passing game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try Cook in some different looks. But other than that, I think, you could see a lot of the screen game just to try to slow down the pass rush, try to get players in space, try to take advantage of, one missed tackle and you can get some chunk yardage. The Syracuse offense is kind of predicated on controlling the ball and the tempo, but really hitting those chunk plays. Mm-hmm. And that's what's missing. Since Angeli went out, they've really kind of lacked that ability to hit the 20-yard passes, the 15, and start hitting, 7 or 8 yards in a pass, and then come back with a run for 6 or 7 and really keep the defense off balance. And so it's been kind of incomplete pass, run on second down, then you're in 3rd and long, and you're struggling to protect and find anything. And so so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do some screen game, try to do some jet sweeps. I know you typically against a team with Miami's speed, that stuff might not work, but like you said, you're trying to show them something new that you haven't seen. And I think just try to give them some stuff to make them slow down and react rather than pursue the ball right away.